Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer video, and today we're going to be talking about 10 mono-white budget decks. So, I recently made a video featuring a whole bunch of different mono-green decks, and today we're going to be talking about all the different white decks. So, a couple things with this. One, realistically, this is a perfect video for a number of different people. It's for people that are maybe looking to get into Pioneer, that maybe are new to Magic just in general, if you're looking to get into Pioneer as a format, or if you just want some extra decks, maybe to have a friend borrow, or, you know, something you maybe want to try different for your local FNM or playing with friends, whatever the reason, this really is the perfect video for so many people looking to play some Pioneer. So, before we hop into the actual decks here, I have to mention, these are the 4 things that they all have to be met. So, they have to be mono white. We have one deck that's kind of not mono white, but it really is mono white, which will make sense in a bit. They all have to be less than $50 US. That's also a really important thing, because obviously it is a budget deck after all. It has to have a flavorful theme. The deck has to be just fun to play, you know, have a lot of synergy, or just, you know, just kind of make sense. You know, it's not just like a boring old bland, like whatever deck. And then it also has to be easy for new players. You know, we're not going to be playing any super complicated cards, so that way if you're a new player looking to pick up one of these decks, it's not going to be overcomplicated for you to play the deck. Okay, so let's actually hop into the decks here. So the first one I got to talk about, you know, when most people think of mono white, they think of life gain. So obviously we have a really cool budget life gain deck here. I guess you could kind of call this like a Soul Sisters deck. You know, you have your cheap life gain creatures. You have your cheap creatures that whenever other creatures enter the battlefield, you gain some life, which triggers our cards like Ajani's Pridemate, Exemplar of Light, as well as Voice of the Blessed. Really, this is just your traditional mono white Ajani's Pridemate life gain deck. That's really what this deck is. Pretty basic, nothing too crazy, just a whole bunch of life gain triggers. So the next deck we have to talk about is Convoke. Yes, Convoke. Boros Convoke is a really popular deck in the Pioneer format. You know, it's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, but you can have a really sweet mono-white Convoke deck. You still get a whole bunch of the good 1-drops. You get all the great 2-drops like Resolute Reinforcements. You get Knight Errant of Eos and Venerated Loxodon. So really, you get a little bit of everything with this deck, and overall, it's pretty darn solid. I would say that this is probably one of the strongest of all the budget decks that I shared here today. So the next deck we got to talk about is Flyers, mono white Flyers. You play a whole bunch of cheap 1- and 2-drop Flyers, and then you play Saphara Sky's Blade, which is just an absolutely incredible card. You can also play Rally of Wings to just anthem your creatures +2/+2, which is just absolutely insane. In a magical world, you could like attack with all your 1-drops, then you Rally of Wings, you untap them, they all get a huge buff, and then in your second main phase, you play Saphara for 1 white. I don't know, a little bit of a magical Christmas land, but still a definitely very good effect that you can do with this deck. Honestly, this deck probably, I want to say, is the cheapest of the bunch, but it's definitely one of the most fun. So definitely a huge fan of the mono white Flyers. Next deck we have to talk about is Heroic. I really love this mono-white Heroic deck. Similar to the Boros Heroic deck that a lot of people like to play, you still get all your really cheap, you know, mono-white Heroic cards. You obviously get Favorite Hoplite, but you also get cards like Clever Luminancer, which is pretty cool, and you still get Illuminator Virtuoso. You get all the different good palm spells. You get Defiant Stray, God's Willing, Homestead Courage, Lauren's Escape. We're also playing a few Griff's Boon in this deck. Just overall, this card, or this deck is just really fun to play. It's mono-white Heroic. If you like, you know, just putting a whole bunch of like everything on one creature, or really going all in on one creature, this is definitely the perfect deck for you. Okay, so the next deck I have to talk about is definitely one of the more interesting ones here. That is mono-white Bogals, in terms of, you know, like I guess it's kind of just Bogals in a way, but what makes it really interesting is obviously, you know, with green, you get all your different hexproof creatures. You know, obviously we don't have access to those because we're mono-white, but you get cards like Optimistic Scavenger, the Armored Armadillo. You have a little bit higher upside potentially, which is kind of cool. Obviously, so you still get the Light Paws, Emperor's Voice, Cartouche Solidarity. You still get a lot of the good mono-white Bogals cards, or the good, you know, green-white Bogals cards. But yeah, it's just mono-white, which is a little bit different. But the real spicy deck, which I was thinking that one was coming before Bogals, and that is mono-white Hero. So the idea behind this deck is you play Hero of Precinct 1. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So the idea is you play a bunch of cards like Boros Reckoner, Wiltleaf Liege, Judge's Familiar, Dryad Militant, and all these different creatures that technically are multicolored, even though we can just cast them with white mana, and then we get an additional token from Hero of Precinct 1. I know I made a deck tech on this quite some time ago here on the channel, and it was a really fun deck to play. We still do have some mono white cards. You know, we have cards like Ossification, Brave the Elements, Sky Knight, Squire, Sheltered by Ghosts, Werefox Bodyguard, but this deck is just so fun to play. Just you make a whole bunch of tokens and turn them sideways. It's just a slightly different take on like a mono white token deck. It's just really fun, and you get to play a bunch of cards that you normally would not get to play. So the last few decks I have to talk about here, obviously people love their tribal kindred decks, and we've got a few to talk about. So the first one is humans. Truly, I think that this could potentially be the best deck that I have to feature here today. It's really just humans. Mono white humans has been one of those, tier 1 1.5 decks in the Pioneer format for quite some time, and we can easily play this deck on a budget. Most of the cards that are being featured in this list are all cards that are featured in the actual list itself. Your Dauntless Bodyguard, Hopeful Initiate, Recruitment Officer, still see a ton of play in those decks. Coppercoat Vanguard, Thalia's Lieutenant, Thalia Guardian of Threadman, some of the best cards in the entire deck, as well as Adeline Resplendent Cathar. It's beginning a ton of different reprints, so it's very easily to slot this now into the budget list. But yeah, overall, humans, definitely one of the strongest mono white decks that you can play in the entire format. We also have knights, which knights is a little bit different than humans. Some of the knights are also humans. I want to say actually most of them are, but it's just a slightly different take on humans, really. Some of the cards, kind of translate a little bit, but you do get a card like History of Benalia, which you just get so much value with History of Benalia. You be able, you make 2 knights, and then your knights get +2/+1 until end of turn. You obviously still get to play Adeline Resplendent Cathar because it happens to be a human knight, so it's really just a slightly different take on humans. So the next thing I have to talk about is probably one of my favorite ones in the entire list today, and that is cats. Mono white cats. It's a little bit different than the Selesnya cat decks that I like to play here on the channel, where you play Collected Company, and you just jam as many lords as you possibly can. This deck is a little bit different. So you still get a Rabble the First Fang and Kahira as your main, lords, but we also are playing 4 copies of Regal Caracal, so we're going just a little bit bigger than we normally would, but we're still getting a whole bunch of really fantastic cats in this deck. And overall, this deck, I've always loved cats in Pioneer. Savannah Lions and Rabble in Foundations really helped that deck get the boost that it needed. And yeah, overall, cats, definitely a really, really fun deck to play in the format. And then we also have Angels, which is our last deck that we're talking about today. I have to include Angels just because people love playing, casual Angel decks. But the biggest thing with this deck was it was really, really tricky to find a budget list for this. This was the only deck that I posted that I actually struggled to kind of get under that $50 price range. I did have to cut Resplendent Angel as well as Bishop of Wings. So instead of going all in on the life gain side of it, we're really just playing a good Angel value deck. So, we're still playing Lunarch Veteran in case of the Uneaten Feast for a little bit of life gain synergy, but we're really just going and playing a whole bunch of good angels like Giada, Youthful Valkyrie, Righteous Valkyrie, Dazzling Angel, Exemplar of Light, the 1 copy of Legion Angel, and then you play the 3 copies in the sideboard. But yeah, this is really just a solid mono white angel deck. It's got a little bit of life gain strategy, but also fits in our budget, which is definitely very, very important. And yeah, that's all 10 decks that we have to talk about today, and I hope you enjoyed those decks. Let me know which one's your favorite in the comments section. But yeah, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks so much for watching. All the deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out. That includes all of the sideboards as well. And I know I just kind of, gave the generic land description, but I kind of go into detail on which lands for each deck that you should definitely play in the deck. So huge shout out to our channel members: Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Sarah Noki, Michael D, our premium channel member, The Common Cold, Jeremy P, and BG Stilts. If you're interested in being a channel member, it starts at $1 a month, and you gain access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane, thanks for watching this video, and hope to catch you in the next one.